Hello, my name is Candace Poulard, and today I will be doing an oral history of my grandmother, Janie Poulard. Through her shared stories of her lived experiences, I will be able to understand and analyze the ways that things such as power and culture have impacted her life. We do not exist in a bubble. We have to pay attention to the way that society interacts with us and how we interact with society. By using my grandmother's stories, I want to investigate the ways that advantages and disadvantages played a role in her life. I want to look at the culture that shaped her into who she became. I want to look at how power influenced her life. And I want to examine the way that various intercultural contexts required her to act different ways. Lastly, I want to acknowledge how all of these things can play a role in how we understand the people around us and their personal experiences. My grandmother grew up in a culture that emphasized community. One of the core values of the Black community is taking care of one another. Throughout her life, she knew where she could go if she needed a hot meal. Her mother trusted those in the neighborhood to make sure she was safely taken care of. As she entered adulthood, her children knew where they could go for hot meals. There was a level of trust upheld by the neighbors in the area. There was a mutual understanding that they had to take care of each other, keep one another off drugs, provide safe places for their children to play, and hot meals for those looking for one. That core belief of community as the culture taught values such as compassion and love for your fellow person. These values were passed down from generation to generation. My grandmother was a correctional officer in New York City. She worked her way up through the ranks and went as high as she could. Being a correctional officer meant that she was in charge of taking care of the people that were incarcerated. She was able to change the treatment for those incarcerated. She had the power to determine how they were treated, fairly or unfairly. My grandmother used this power to put policies and things in place for the betterment of the inmates, and used her power to fight against the discrimination that those incarcerated faced and the discrimination that she faced being a woman in the industry. My grandma sued the city of New York on 2 occasions. The first was against gender discrimination. The prison refused to give her a promotion, even though she was the best and most qualified candidate for the job, on the basis of her gender. The second was to demand better treatment and environmental conditions for those incarcerated and for the other correctional officers. She won both of the lawsuits and received back pay and was able to establish better policies for the overall betterment of the prison. Her intelligence and education served as an advantage for her in life. My grandmother's family always emphasized the importance of education. She came from an educated father and a mother who made it her very decision to make sure she received an education. Her ability to understand finances and accounting allowed my grandmother to excel in various career fields. She also grew up in an era when affirmative action was being initiated, which opened many doors for her that were not previously open to Black women. She experienced disadvantages as well, growing up from middle-class beginnings, shaping her life goals from a young age. She decided at the age of 7 to never experience poverty, after dealing with the various hardships of a lower economic status. Additionally, my grandma experienced race and gender discrimination. Her intersecting identities of being both Black and a woman served different challenges as she navigated the workforce while being the most present parent, raising her 2 children in New York City. My grandmother worked in diverse spaces. She had to interact with people from different cultural backgrounds. As an accountant, she worked under a Jewish man, and as a correctional officer, she worked with various incarcerated people of all different walks of life, effectively showing how to communicate across difference. Learning about my grandmother's life helps me understand how culture and power impact us generationally. My grandmother's lived experiences, her privileges and disadvantages, the way power permeated throughout her life, and the way her culture and community surrounded her not only impacted her, but impacted my father, and in turn, impacted me as well. Thanks for watching.